Welcome to the world of science fiction Neon's Alien. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story from Neon's Alien universe. The jungle was quiet. Only the sound of strange birds and buzzing insects filled the air. Human soldier Grant Walker stepped carefully through the thick red grass. His uniform was torn, his helmet cracked, and his left arm wrapped in makeshift bandages. His ship had gone down 2 days ago, shot during a surprise attack in deep space. He had fallen hard onto this strange green moon. There were no other humans. No signal. No rescue. Only trees that glowed at night, flying creatures with glass wings, and vines that moved like they were alive. He was completely alone. Or so he thought. Grant walked along a rocky slope, scanning the land with tired eyes. His survival kit was almost empty. He needed water, shelter, maybe food. That's when he saw it. A metal glint between the bushes. He pushed the leaves aside and stepped closer. There it was, a small silver escape pod, half buried in the earth, tilted sideways, like a broken egg. Smoke still drifted from its back panel. It wasn't human tech. Grant raised his rifle just in case. He slowly approached the pod and touched the outer shell. It was warm but not hot. He tapped twice. No answer. Then he saw a small handprint on the glass. Tiny. Too small for any adult. It was pressed from the inside. And then, movement. Something, inside shifted. Grant stepped back as the door hissed and slowly opened with a soft creak. A quiet breath escaped the pod. And then, she appeared. She was tiny, no more than 2 feet tall. Her skin was soft violet, her hair thin and silver, falling gently over her pointed ears. Her eyes were large and glowing with golden light. Thin wings folded against her back, and her arms trembled as she tried to sit up. She looked up at him and froze. Her golden eyes widened in fear. She gasped. Then she whispered something in a shaky voice. Please. Don't eat me. Grant blinked. What? The little alien girl pushed herself backward, pressing against the wall of the pod, her arms wrapped around her knees, her wings shaking. She looked like a frightened animal. I'm not going to eat you, Grant said softly, lowering his weapon. She didn't understand. She just kept staring at him like he was a monster. Her voice came again, broken and terrified. Big teeth. Strong. Human. Eat small ones. Grant frowned. He knelt slowly so he wasn't towering over her. I'm not here to hurt you, he said again. Look, no gun, see? He placed the rifle gently on the ground and held out his hands. The little alien watched his every move. She didn't run, but she didn't relax either. Minutes passed. Neither of them moved. Then, slowly, her lips parted. Why, you not bite? Grant gave a small laugh. Because I'm not a wild animal. The little girl looked confused. You, not hunter? He shook his head. I'm a soldier. My ship crashed too. Her eyes narrowed a little. You eat others? Grant sighed. No, I only eat food, not people. She looked at his bag. Food? He opened the flap and pulled out a nutrition bar. See this? He said, holding it up. He took a bite, chewed, and then offered the rest to her. She stared at it like it might explode. Then, slowly, carefully, she reached out and took it. Her fingers brushed his for half a second. She sniffed the food, then took a tiny bite. She chewed. Her eyes widened. Sweet, she whispered. Grant smiled. It's chocolate. The little alien looked at him again. This time her eyes were still big, but not afraid. She tilted her head and asked softly, Not eat Ziri? Grant blinked. Ziri? She placed a hand on her chest. Me, Ziri. He nodded. No, Ziri, I'm not going to eat you. I'm Grant. Gran? Close enough. Ziri slowly crawled out of the pod. Her legs were weak, her wings were torn, but she didn't try to run. She looked around, then back at him. Ziri. Follow Gron? He hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, come with me. I'll keep you safe. And so, under the strange alien sky, a tiny girl from a forgotten world followed a tired human soldier into the trees, one step behind him, her wings dragging, her eyes watching every move. She still didn't know if she could trust him, but for the first time in her life, she hoped she could. Ziri didn't walk beside the human. She walked behind him, quiet, low to the ground, one wing slightly dragging in the dirt. She didn't trust him, not fully, not yet. He said his name was Gron. His steps were loud, his voice deep. Everything about him was big, loud, dangerous. But he hadn't hurt her. He had even given her sweet food. Still, her heart beat fast whenever he looked back. She had heard stories about humans. They eat the small ones. They crush villages. They laugh while they burn wings. That's what the elders told her before they were taken. Now she watched the human from the trees. She had climbed up while he was distracted building shelter. He had carved out a flat space between two rocks and was making a fire again, just like before. Ziri crouched on a thick branch. Her feet were light. Her eyes never blinked. She stared down at him like he was a puzzle she couldn't solve. Grant? The human wiped sweat from his forehead. He knew Ziri was watching him from the trees. He didn't mind. He was used to being watched. On the battlefield, in meetings, on rescue missions, but this was different. She wasn't an enemy. She was afraid, and that bothered him more than he expected. He held up a small silver flask. Water, he called softly. Want some? No reply. I'm not trying to trick you, he said. It's clean. You can smell it first if you want. Still nothing. He placed it on a rock and moved away. Then he pretended to check his gear. Ziri didn't move at first, but the thirst was real. Her tongue felt like dust. She dropped silently from the tree and fluttered down with a painful wince. Her wings still hurt. She looked at the silver flask, sniffed it. It smelled clean. She touched it, then looked up. The human wasn't near. She drank. Only a little. Then quickly placed it back and ran behind the rocks to hide again. Grant smiled. She was fast, lighter than air, but he had seen her move. Progress, he thought. Later, that evening, he cooked a few roots over the fire, alien ones he'd tested carefully. He knew she wouldn't eat directly from his hand, so he placed some on a flat leaf near a tree and sat back. Then he waited. Ziri stared at the food from a distance. She sniffed again. Warm, safe. Her tiny hands picked it up. She nibbled. She liked, but she didn't say thanks. Not yet. Instead, she looked at the human again, still sitting, still watching the fire. He had only spoken in soft tones. No orders, no growls, just patience. That night, the air turned cold. The moon, huge and orange, rose above the trees. Ziri curled up inside the hollow of a log near the fire, where she could see him but still stay hidden. Her wing throbbed, but her belly was full. Her mouth still tasted sweet from the earlier food. Her eyes stayed open, watching the human giant sleep. She wondered how a monster could snore softly. At some point in the night, she heard him groan. He turned in his sleep, holding his side. She noticed the bandage on his arm had soaked through. She moved closer. Just a little. The scent of blood was fresh. In her people's culture, blood meant life, but also truth. If someone bled near you, it meant they were not hiding anymore. The giant wasn't just strong. He was hurting. In the quiet of the forest, Ziri whispered to herself, "He could crush me, but didn't." She looked down at her tiny hands. "He fed me." She looked again at his injured arm. "He bleeds too." Ziri stood up slowly and crawled forward. She pulled a soft leaf from the ground, soaked it in clean water, and crept near his side. He didn't wake. She pressed the cool leaf gently to his arm. His breathing slowed, and he smiled in his sleep. She blinked, surprised, then whispered the words again, but this time not in fear. "Please don't eat me," and added something new. "Maybe you never wanted to." The next morning, Grant opened his eyes slowly. His side still hurt, but the pain had changed. It was cooler, calmer, like something soft had touched the wound in the night. He looked down. A damp leaf, tied to his arm with thin grass. He blinked. That wasn't there before? His eyes scanned the camp. He spotted movement, small and quick, disappearing behind a log. "Ziri," he smiled. "She came close," he whispered. "She's trying." Ziri peeked from behind the log. She saw the human notice the leaf. He didn't throw it away. He didn't growl. He just smiled. Strange. Very strange. She waited for him to speak, but he didn't. He just stood up, stretched, and started working again. He moved slowly, clearly still hurting. Ziri tilted her head. A monster would rest. Let someone else suffer. But this one worked. All morning she watched him. He built a shelter wall from broken branches. He lined the roof with large leaves. He even added a small opening, just big enough for someone her size to crawl in. Ziri squinted. Was that for her? She fluttered her wings gently, still sore, but better than before. Later, Grant lit the fire again and boiled some roots in a small metal cup. He didn't say anything to Ziri, didn't force her to come closer. Instead, he placed the warm food on a flat stone and quietly walked away. Ziri approached slowly. The food smelled strange but warm. She touched it, tasted it, and sighed. Safe. Filling. Better than anything she'd eaten in weeks. She looked at him. He was sitting with his back to her, watching the trees. Always watching. Always quiet. That night, the cold returned fast. A heavy wind blew through the trees. Ziri huddled in her log, shivering. Her wings folded tight, but it wasn't enough. Then came the sound. Footsteps, big, slow, approaching her hiding spot. She froze. Was he coming to chase her off? To catch her? To eat her now? But Grant knelt slowly beside the log and gently set down a folded piece of his thermal blanket. Then, without saying a word, he walked back to his own corner of the camp. Ziri stared at the soft cloth. It was still, warm from his body. She sniffed it. No poison, no trap. She wrapped herself in it, slowly. It was soft. So soft. For the first time in many nights, her body stopped shaking. Her small eyes began to close. Just before sleep came, she whispered to herself, "Maybe the monster is not a monster." The next day, she dared to come closer. While Grant rested and checked his bandages, Ziri crawled near the fire. He noticed her but didn't speak. He just nodded gently, then kept working. She sat by the flames, knees pulled to her chest, wings tucked in tight. He handed her a cup of warm liquid. She took it, drank, didn't run. Grant finally spoke. "Your wing still hurts?" Ziri nodded. "I can help wrap it, only if you want." She didn't reply, but she didn't say no. Very carefully, he cut a clean strip of cloth, then gently held her wing. It was light as a feather, delicate. He worked slowly, wrapping it with steady hands. Ziri stared up at his face the whole time, so focused, so gentle. She'd never seen hands that size work without breaking something. After he finished, she whispered, "Why?" Grant looked at her. "Why what? Why help me?" "I am small. Useless." He shook his head. "You're not useless." She lowered her eyes. "I can't fight. I can't hunt. I can't even fly." Grant smiled. "But you stayed. You didn't run. That takes more strength than most soldiers I've known." Ziri blinked. "You think I am brave?" "I think you're more than you know." That night they sat by the fire together, not far apart, not hiding, just quiet, just safe. Ziri looked up at the stars, then at Grant, and for the first time since she landed on this cruel moon, she didn't whisper fear. She whispered something new. "Thank you, Gran." He looked down at her, surprised she'd never said his name right before. "Ziri," he replied. "You're welcome." Far beyond the trees in the dark jungle, eyes watched them. Not animal, not human. Something else. Something hungry. Something coming. The fire had burned low. The stars were covered by thick clouds. The jungle was quiet, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of silence that came before. Something terrible. Ziri's eyes snapped open. She felt at first a tremble in the roots, a shift in the wind, a smell, like wet stone and rotting metal. She crawled out of her shelter quietly and looked at Grant. He was asleep beside the fire, breathing slow. His bandaged arm was exposed, his weapon lying next to him. She climbed, a rock for a better view. That's when she saw it, a shape in the trees, tall, slender, moving low, crawling like a shadow with too many arms. Ziri froze, her blood turned cold. Night creepers. They were not animals, they were not soldiers, they were hunters. Creatures that came from the broken moons of the war, born in labs, left behind after battles. They hunted by heat and sound, no eyes, no voice, no, only hunger. Ziri slid back down the rock, rushed to Grant and shook his shoulder with her tiny hands. He groaned. "What is it?" She covered his mouth, then whispered in his ear, "Danger. Don't move. Something comes." Grant sat up fast, grabbing his rifle. He didn't ask questions. He trusted her. That meant everything. Ziri pointed toward the trees. Grant adjusted his scope and saw it, just for a second, moving along the ground like a liquid shadow with long claws. "Not good," he muttered. "How many?" Ziri closed her eyes and listened. She could feel the vibrations. She opened them again, her voice shaking. "3. Can we run?" She shook her head. "They'll hear. They'll follow." Grant looked around. The camp was too open. No caves. No high ground. Then he looked at Ziri. She was shaking, but standing strong. "I'll distract them," he said. "You hide." Her eyes went wide. "No, they'll eat you." He smiled. "Let them try." Before she could argue, he was already moving. Grant ran to the edge of the camp and smashed a metal box against a tree, creating noise. The first night creeper turned instantly and attacked. Grant opened fire. The shot hit one in the chest, but it didn't stop. He ran deeper into the trees, drawing them away. Ziri watched from a hiding place, heart pounding. She could still hear him shouting, firing, running. But soon, the sound stopped. Silence again. Ziri's breath caught. "No." She crawled out, trembling. Her body told her to hide, but her heart told her to move, to fight, to save. She followed the path through the jungle, wings low, hands holding a sharp rock. She wasn't strong, she wasn't trained, but Grant had called her brave. That meant something now. Then she saw it. A clearing. One of the night creepers was dead, burning from a blast. Another was on top of Grant, pinning him down. He was, bleeding. His rifle lay broken beside him. The third creature circled, waiting for the final strike. Ziri didn't think. She screamed. A high, sharp sound. So high, it made the creatures freeze. She flew straight into the circling one, her injured wing fluttering hard, and stabbed the sharp rock into its neck. It shrieked and collapsed. The last one turned toward her. Grant reached up and grabbed his emergency flare. Pshh! He jammed it into the creature's mouth. It exploded. Ash and black slime covered the grass. Ziri dropped beside him. "Gran!" He coughed, blood on his lips. Still alive? Somehow. She held his head gently. Why did you do that? You could have died. He smiled weakly. You ran toward me. Ziri blinked. I had to. You saved me first. They looked at each other, both breathing hard, both hurt, both alive. That night, back at the camp, Ziri cleaned his wounds again. She sat beside him, small hands working with focus and care. You're not just a giant, she whispered. You're good. Grant looked at her. You're not just tiny, he said. You're everything I needed. Ziri smiled for the first time. Really smiled. And in the dark jungle, no more creatures came. Not that night. Because sometimes, even monsters know when not to return. The morning after the attack, the jungle was strangely peaceful. No screams, no creatures. Only soft wind moving through the glowing leaves. The campfire was out. Smoke curled into the air like a gentle thread. Grant sat with his back against a rock, breathing slowly, his wounds bandaged again. Beside him, Ziri sat quietly, legs crossed, wings resting on the ground. She hadn't spoken since dawn. Grant didn't ask questions. He could feel something heavy in her silence. Finally, she looked at him. Her golden eyes were soft, no longer afraid. No longer hiding. Can I tell you something? She whispered. Grant nodded. Always. Ziri looked up at the sky. There were once millions of us. My kind. We lived in forests that floated in homes made from song and light. She paused. No walls, no guns, just peace. Grant listened carefully, saying nothing. Ziri continued. We were small. We didn't fight. We didn't need to. Other species traded with us, came for healing, music, and joy. Her hands folded on her lap. Then, the wars came. Her voice dropped lower. Big ships filled the skies. The empires stopped trading. They started taking. My people were hunted. They called us useless. Or worse. She swallowed hard. Delicacies. Grant's eyes darkened. They ate your people? Ziri nodded. Some kept us in cages. Some used us for tests. Our wings were pulled, our songs stolen. We became nothing but pets, toys, or food. Her fingers trembled. My family hid deep in the roots, but soldiers found us. I watched them take my sisters. She looked away. I never saw them again. Grant reached out slowly and placed a hand beside hers, not touching, just close. I'm so sorry, he said. Ziri didn't cry, but her voice shook. I thought all big ones were like that, even you. When I saw you by the fire, her voice became soft again. I thought I was next. Grant nodded. I understand. I'd think the same if I were you. Ziri looked at him. But you didn't eat me, or lock me, or even shout. He smiled gently. That's not how I was raised, and that's not who I am. Ziri stared at him for a moment. Then she slowly crawled forward and rested her tiny hand on his arm. You gave me food. You gave me warmth. You gave me your blanket. She looked into his eyes. You gave me safety. Grant felt a lump in his throat. He hadn't done it for thanks. He hadn't done it for reward. He did it because she mattered. Because in this lonely, dangerous world, she reminded him what it meant to protect something pure. Ziri sat beside him. The jungle wind moved around them. Then she whispered something he didn't expect. My people had a ritual, a bond. It was called Sarin. What does that mean? Grant asked. It means, I choose to stand beside you, not because I must, but because I trust. Grant looked at her with surprise. You're saying that to me? She nodded. Yes, I speak it with my own voice, my own will. He looked away for a second, trying to hide the emotion in his face, then turned back to her and placed his fist over his chest. I choose you too, Ziri. They sat like that for a long time, side by side. No words, just the bond between them, unspoken, but strong. That evening, Ziri sang softly for the first time. Her voice was high, light, and full of memory. Grant didn't understand the words, but he didn't need to. He felt it in his chest, a story of loss, of hope, of one little soul who survived everything and still chose kindness. And far above in orbit, a beacon light blinked on a ruined satellite. It had detected life. It had sent a signal, and someone had answered. The stars blinked through the clouds that night. Ziri lay beside the campfire, curled in the soft cloth Grant had given her. Her wings twitched slightly in sleep. Grant sat nearby, staring at the old emergency beacon he'd finally managed to fix. The screen glowed faint green. A signal pulsed quietly. Location confirmed. Life forms detected. Rescue ship en route. ETA 6 hours. Grant exhaled slowly. Help is coming, he whispered. But for the first time, his voice didn't sound excited. He glanced at Ziri, who shifted in her sleep. And a heavy thought filled his heart. What will they do when they see her? When the sun rose, Ziri woke to the sound of metal tools clicking and a strange hum in the air. She saw the beacon blinking on a rock. She sat up slowly. What's that light? Grant looked at her, unsure how to say it. It's a signal. For rescue, a ship is coming. Ziri stood quickly, wings fluttering. Her voice rose, full of panic. No ships, no soldiers. Grant raised his hands. Hey, it's okay. Ziri, breathe. They're here to help. But she backed away. They'll take me, she said. Put me in a cage. Call me a pet or worse. They won't. You don't know that. She turned and ran. Grant stood frozen for a second, then chased after her. But she was fast, flying low through the trees. He followed her into the tall grass, past glowing flowers and red stones, until she stopped near the old crashed pod where he first found her. There, she crouched low, hugging her knees. Grant approached slowly. Ziri, he said gently. I won't let anyone hurt you, I promise. She shook her head. You're not the one I'm scared of, it's the others, the ones who smile while they lie, who say I'm safe, then put me in a box. Grant knelt beside her. I get it. I've seen people do awful things in the name of orders. But you're not going anywhere you don't want to go. Not while I'm alive. She looked up at him. Will they listen to you? He smiled. They'll have to. Hours later, the ship arrived. It broke through the clouds like a blade of silver light, humming quietly as it hovered above the trees. Grant stood in the open clearing, rifle slung on his back. Ziri hid behind a tree, watching. A ramp lowered. 2 humans in clean uniforms stepped out, scanning the area. One of them, a tall woman with a hard face, stepped forward. Lieutenant Grant Walker? Yes. You're a hard man to find. I try, she smirked. We received your emergency signal. We're here to bring you home. Grant nodded. I appreciate that, but I'm not coming alone. The woman frowned. Sir? She's with me. The life form in your scanner. Her name is Ziri. The other soldier tapped a screen. Alien. Class unknown. High energy readings unregistered. The woman narrowed her eyes. Specimen. Grant stepped in front of her. Not a specimen. Not a test subject. She's my partner. She saved my life. We leave together. Or I stay. The soldier stared at him for a long time. You understand what you're saying? Bringing a non-cleared alien onto a human ship violates 20. I know what it violates, Grant said calmly. But it would violate something worse if I abandoned her. The woman looked past him, eyes scanning the trees. Is she watching? Yes, he said. And she hears every word. Ziri peeked out, wings folded low. The woman exhaled and stepped back. She gets her own cabin. No cages, no lab scans, unless she agrees. Grant nodded. Deal. Then he turned and smiled. Ziri. It's okay. You can come out. Ziri stepped forward slowly, heart pounding. She looked at the big ship, at the soldiers, at the strange metal tools. Everything in her body told her to run. But then, She looked at Grant. He held out his hand, just like he did the first time he gave her food. Only this time he said one thing. "I'm still with you." She took his hand. Together, they walked up the ramp. Inside, everything was bright and cold and new. Ziri held Grant's finger tightly. No one grabbed her. No one shouted. The ship lifted quietly, taking them off the jungle moon. Ziri looked out the window as the trees disappeared. She whispered, "I never thought I'd leave that place." Grant looked down at her. "You're free now," she smiled. "No, I'm home." The stars looked different from up here. Ziri sat by the wide window of the ship, her tiny hands pressed against the glass. Her wings shimmered faintly in the soft light. She had never seen space like this. So quiet, so open, so peaceful. No more trees to hide under, no more cold logs, no more running. For the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid. Grant walked into the room holding 2 steaming cups. "One's tea," he said. "The other, well, I think it's juice. Ship food isn't the best." Ziri turned and smiled. "Both sound better than boiled root." He laughed and handed her the smaller cup. She took it gently. "Thank you for everything." Grant sat beside her, looking out the window too. "Funny, isn't it?" he said. "I went down to that planet thinking I'd just survive and wait for a pickup. Instead, I left with the bravest person I've ever met." Ziri looked up at him. "You mean me?" He nodded. "You stood by me. You protected me. You taught me things I didn't even know I needed to learn." She looked down at her cup, shy but glowing. Later, the crew called for a formal report. Grant entered the small briefing room with Ziri perched quietly on his shoulder. The officers stared. Some were confused, some curious. One even frowned. "This creature was with you on the surface?" asked the officer. "She's not a creature," Grant said. "Her name is Ziri. She's intelligent, peaceful, and saved my life. But she's unregistered. No known species match, no legal papers." "She doesn't need papers," Grant said. "She has her voice, and she has me." Ziri raised her head. "I'm not a prisoner," she said in clear words. "I chose to be here." There was silence. Then slow, uncertain nods. No one argued, not after seeing her speak for herself. Back in his quarters, Ziri flew in a circle for the first time since her wing healed. "I never thought I'd have sky again," she whispered. "You've got more than sky," Grant replied. "You've got a future." She floated down onto his arm. "You're not afraid I'll be taken away?" Grant looked at her serious. "If anyone tries, they'll have to go through me first." Ziri smiled, then did something she'd never done before. She hugged him, tiny arms around his neck. Light as feathers. "I used to beg strangers, 'Please don't eat me,'" she whispered. Grant chuckled. "I remember." Ziri looked up, golden, eyes soft. "Now I say, 'Please don't leave me.'" Grant touched her back gently. "Never." Weeks passed. They traveled from one station to another. Doctors offered tests. Ziri refused. Scientists asked questions. She answered only what she wished. She was never caged, never touched without asking. She sat at tables beside Grant, learned human words, tasted human foods, most were too salty, and even flew short circles inside the ship gym. Everyone aboard slowly adjusted. She became more than a guest. She became a name they remembered. One night, she and Grant returned to the observation deck. She looked out at the stars again, same as before. But this time, she didn't press her hands to the glass, she simply breathed. Grant looked at her. "What are you thinking?" Ziri smiled. "I'm thinking about others like me, still hiding, still afraid." Grant nodded. "We'll find them. One day." Ziri fluttered onto his shoulder. "And when we do, I'll tell them something I never thought I'd say." He raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" She placed her hand on his cheek. That once I feared a human would eat me, but instead he became the reason I finally felt safe. Down below, on a jungle moon spinning in silence, a silver pod lay empty, its door still open, and a small set of footprints led away from it, toward a fire that had once burned in fear and now burned in hope.